A new travel ban has been advised by the NAACP to not go to Missouri. Meanwhile, the internet isn't too thrilled about the new Death Wish remake with Bruce Willis and let Bruce Willis and everyone know about it online yesterday. And Will and Grace is all about the Grace as they get extra episodes for the upcoming season and a second season before it even airs. Those stories and more that we talked about all day yesterday in today's Daily Recap Podcast. Today is August the 4th, 2017. And welcome to the podcast. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne. I'm your host for the Daily Recap Podcast from thisistheconversation.com, where we go through the past day's stories that we shared with you on social media and our website, where you interacted with the stories. Let us know which conversations were the best ones for the day. This is the culmination of the day. Today is Friday, so of course we'll have today's stories from yesterday. And we will tape a show for tomorrow, which will give you the top 10 stories of the week called the Weekly Wrap-Up Podcast. We'll talk more about that towards the end of this show. But right now, let's talk about how you can be a part of the shows any single day of the week. It's very simple. All you have to do is just be a part of what you're doing right now, hanging out on the internet and social media. Find us on Facebook at This Is The Conversation. Make sure you set it so that you get our posts in your feed, so they're coming up constantly. Find us on Twitter at @TH_conversation, and just look for us out there, here or there. We post about every hour or so throughout the day. And of course, if you can't keep up with that, just stop by our website every so often at thisistheconversation.com and just look at some stories there. All you have to do is interact with them. You can like them, you can share them, you can just look at them literally, and we get the results and we add them up and put them into a nice little pretty spreadsheet. All votes are tallied, and we talk about the ones that are the most relevant, and sometimes I sneak in some that I just think I really want to talk about, which does happen more often than it probably should, but we're working on that as well. Let's get into the stories we talked about for yesterday. The WNBA, which really isn't a big deal in most cases, is going to be a big deal for video games. It's for the first time ever having access to WNBA players in the upcoming NBA Live 18. Now, why is that extra relevant? Because NBA Live franchise from EA has been essentially dead for years. They've been trying to revive it in various ways, and this may be the time that it comes to life. And they may actually get extra life by allowing women who do play video games and do play a fair amount of sports games to play the characters or the players that they can relate to, literally other women. Now, there's rumors to whether some of the women will be available in some of the street ball modes and some of the extra modes for the game that tries to compete with the 2K franchise, which has overtaken the EA Sports franchise in major sports. However, that's not been confirmed, but every single player from the NBA and the WNBA will be available in the new version of NBA Live 18. This was a version, this was a franchise that I was proud to play back in the day until they essentially killed it. Now it is coming back to life and trying to come back strong, getting some traction with the 2K users, 2K players, and by going the WNBA route, getting a little extra juice is the point. Now, we talked about this in the open. The NAACP is issuing a travel advisory, not quite a ban because they don't have the right to keep people from going anywhere, but they issue a travel advisory for minorities and women going to Missouri. And why would you not want to go to Missouri? Well, it's not so much Missouri itself, but it's the laws that have been enacted this month with the new legislature. Every time a legislature goes into effect and puts in new laws, it usually takes months to get them to go into place. They roll in usually around the beginning of August, beginning for the newest fiscal year, for essentially getting things in place for that. And Missouri has levied a bunch of different laws that essentially offer up more discrimination towards minorities, especially in how they're treated in some cases where if you're just picked up on random stops. So they are saying, that's NAACP, are saying that Missouri, not one of the friendlier states to visit for a little while until they deal with some of the issues. Of course, being an internal organization, they're also trying to deal with it legislatively and convince the people in charge of making laws in Missouri to back up a little bit. But in the meantime, they're saying that if you're looking for a friendly place to visit, Missouri may not be as friendly as you think. Very quick look into the world of football, which more or less began last night, with the first Hall of Fame game that was played versus the Arizona Cardinals and the Dallas Cowboys in Canton, Ohio. Although I don't know what the score is because it didn't really matter. Last night, the internets were blowing up with Blaine Gabbert being the starter for Arizona. But that wasn't in the conversations of the day. We had a conversation where we talked about the Amway preseason coaches poll for college football, which more or less officially begins with the preseason poll. Practice essentially started last week, and Alabama, as expected, is the number one team. Alabama is always essentially the number one team and usually the team to beat, making it pretty close into all playoff scenarios, even in the last couple of years when they didn't make it into it before the end of the BCS. They've been in every single brand new championship since the bowl championship has been into place. They may not have been in the big game, but they've been in the top four every single year. Alabama once again reloading and expecting to do pretty well, if not win another championship this year. Your team may want to have some say about that as well. And stepping back towards ESPN, which covers lots of college football, for one day and one day only, they will not be covering college football on ESPNU, which is, of course, the channel they have dedicated to a lot of kind of randomish college sports. Even with all the brand new networks that are dedicated to various conferences, ESPNU is a place where a lot of things get dumped, if you will, for just general college things. For one day and one day only, ESPNU will be called ESPN 8 The Ocho, which is a joke from the Dodgeball movie back from 2004. Basically saying there's so much programming out there that's kind of random. ESPN had an 8th channel with nothing but just really weird stuff. And that is what will be on ESPN 8 The Ocho on one day only. That day being next Tuesday, August the 8th. So remember that date because you'll be able to see things like the Firefighters World Challenge. You'll see World Darts Championship, Arm Wrestling, Disc Golf Championship, Roller Derby will be back on ESPN. Now, it used to be a big staple, by the way. And the Moxie Games. I have no idea what that means, but it will be there. Plus, the World Championship of Street Fighter. Not actual Street Fighters, but people playing the video game Street Fighter. You'll see that on ESPN Ocho. The Ocho, which will be just for one day only, August the 8th, 8/8/2017. Maybe it'll do it 2018 too. We'll see how that rolls out if the Ocho is a popular feature. Now, the Will and Grace revival is already in season 2, even though season 1 hasn't even been released yet. They've added more seasons or more shows to this upcoming first season of the revival, which begins on September 28th, and they already said they'll get 2 seasons out of it. So one little funny skit to throw in for the election turned into the ball rolling to a very, very, very unlikely return of a show and exactly to the network. Will and Grace very popular when it left the network, of course, leaving on a sort of cliffhanger, not even cliffhanger, leaving on a future vision where they went into the future where Will and Grace's kids meet up in college, and then they meet up with each other after a long hiatus. I guess they'll probably recant that whole ending or do something to kind of keep it from going since they were going separate ways, and they'll find a way to bring them back. We'll figure out how that works out. Michelle Carter is a young lady who literally killed her boyfriend or convinced him to kill himself via a bunch of text messages. She sent him a lot of disparaging text while he was dealing with some depression issues, and, of course, it led to him actually killing himself. For that, she receives 2.5 years of sentencing for a suicide text. This is going to be a brand new precedent that's been set by this case. We'll see exactly how it's going, and many lawmakers are thinking it's not exactly going to go very well if this is where they're starting with. This is brand new territory in dealing with cyberbullying, if you will, but going this route may not be the best opening for future cases, which may turn to people who bully people via online means into doing things that harm themselves. Yesterday, the internet saw the trailer for the new Death Wish remake. Speaking of remakes, everything is being remade. Essentially, if not redoing it again, there seems like Hollywood is really, really running out of ideas to do stuff. So they're remaking the Death Wish franchise. We'll say franchise from now. It turned to the franchise back in the day with Charles Bronson, who made about 4 of them, and they were pretty horrible movies. But way back in the day, Charles Bronson walking up and blowing people away was kind of the thing to go see in the movies. This time, Bruce Willis, who is reprising his kind of old man style of roles here, plays a man looking to get revenge for the murder of his wife, and he does such. The internet didn't quite like the idea that they needed another Death Wish, and were a little weirded out by the fact that Bruce Willis is playing the Charles Bronson role. We'll see how the movie actually turns out. Rotten Tomatoes not too thrilled with it either. We'll see if people actually go in and see this and if this Death Wish becomes a new franchise or just more money into Bruce Willis's pocket as he lines it for just kind of taking money at this point. And check out this story. Look for a game called Little Red Lie. It is an interesting video game by an independent publisher that has you play two characters. One character with means, one character without means. The two characters go through life and they have to literally live their life through the lies they tell to survive their worlds. It's an interesting take on what's going on in the world by a video game maker whose previous game was dealing with his personal battle with depression. There weren't really any real things to really advance in the game. It was just kind of dull and boring and showed how his life turned into such a dull, boring thing. This one, for Little Red Lie, is a way to show inequity in money, in wages, in just how poverty works. One character is a young lady who lives with her parents and is trying to take care of them, but is fearful of losing her job. The other is a big Wall Street type guy who has plenty of money, but he has to kind of lie about how horrible his life really is. You can check it out. It's an independent game. It's available on Steam and various places. Check it out if you want a game or you want to see something a bit more diverse than NBA Live 18, which I'm going to pick up as soon as I get a chance to. And those are some of the stories we chatted about all day yesterday, all day Thursday for This Is a Conversation. You had a chance to vote on, if you will, vote on how these things played out by going to social media and just interacting with the stories. And the social media sites look for our @_conversation. That's us on Twitter. Also find us on Facebook at This Is a Conversation, and thisisconversation.com is our main website. We want you to stop by the website and check out some great things, great features on the website, and help us out with checking out some of our sponsors. They help us keep things going here, and we like being here, and we think you like being here with us. So that's there as well. Of course, sharing the podcast and sharing the information with others is great. We like to say share it with some friends, a few enemies, and some random folks you meet on the street, because that gets more people into greater conversations. We'd like you to do that if you have the notion to. And of course, subscribe to the podcast and leave ratings and reviews wherever you get your podcast from. If you're an Apple person, that's awesome. We seem to be slightly over the edge for Android for our listeners. So just barely. It's more like a 52-48 situation. But we love you all regardless or irregardless, whichever way you want to say it, of where you get us from. So make sure you keep getting us, subscribe, and make sure you keep telling us folks about it by suggesting and, of course, giving reviews to the podcast. And, of course, if you want to see other projects that I have going on around the world of the internets, check out my main website, jclevelandpayne.net. And, of course, thank you so much for being in on the conversations. We can't do the conversations, the podcast, or the actual feeds and websites without you being in those conversations. So thank you for being a part of what we have going on every single day. Let's do it again tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to have the weekly wrap-up podcast where we'll have the top 10 stories for the week. I think there'll be some real surprises of what will be the top 10 based on the last 7 days. Plus, we hope to have an actual interview and then someone actually playing the brackets other than myself. We'll have that all happening, released tomorrow morning, so check that out as well. And just be here. We want you to be here. So do whatever you can to make sure you're healthy, you're wealthy, you're wise, and you're listening to the podcast. Thank you very much for being a part of the community. We'll talk to you tomorrow with the weekly wrap-up podcast, and on Monday as we wrap up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with the next edition of the daily recap podcast from thisisconversation.com.